The clock on the microwave blinked 11:47 p.m. when I first started to worry. My wife had texted around 6 that evening, saying she'd be late, some last-minute work thing that turned into drinks with the team. Normal enough. She worked in marketing at a tech firm downtown, and these spontaneous gatherings weren't unusual. But midnight came and went. Then 1 a.m. Then 2. I sat on the couch in our living room, the TV playing some late-night show I wasn't really watching. The sound was just noise to fill the silence that had grown oppressive. I'd called her twice. Both times it went straight to voicemail, which meant her phone was either dead or turned off. I texted. No response. The little delivered notification sat there, mocking me with its simplicity. At 2:30 a.m., I started calling hospitals. I know it sounds dramatic, but my mind had gone to dark places. Car accidents, muggings, anything that might explain why my wife of 7 years would vanish without a word. The hospitals had no record of anyone matching her description. I should have felt relieved, but instead, a different kind of dread settled into my stomach. I tried to rationalize. Maybe her phone died and she couldn't find a charger. Maybe she'd had too much to drink and one of her colleagues was making sure she was safe. Maybe she decided to crash at her friend Sarah's place and forgot to tell me. But Sarah lived 20 minutes from downtown, and my wife would have borrowed a phone. She would have found a way to tell me. By 4 a.m., I was pacing. Our apartment suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. I kept walking to the window, looking down at the street 7 floors below, half expecting to see her car pull up. The city was mostly quiet at this hour, just the occasional taxi and the distant wail of a siren. I made coffee I didn't drink. I sat down, stood up, sat down again. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. Should I call the police? Was I overreacting? The thought that kept circling back, the one I kept trying to push away, was the one I didn't want to acknowledge. What if she didn't want to come home? We'd been happy, or so I thought. Sure, we'd had our rough patches. What couple doesn't after 7 years? She'd been working longer hours lately, but she'd just gotten promoted to senior marketing director 6 months ago. More responsibility meant more time at the office. I understood that. I'd supported it. But there were other things, little things I'd noticed and ignored. The way she'd started dressing differently for work, more attention to makeup, new clothes I hadn't seen before. How she'd angle her phone away when texting, something she'd never done before. The nights she'd come home smelling of cologne that wasn't mine, explaining it away as someone hugged me at the office. I'd believed her because I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative was too painful to consider. At 5:15 a.m., the sky started to lighten, that pale, grey pre-dawn that makes everything look washed out and unreal. I was still on the couch, still in the same clothes I'd worn yesterday, still waiting. My phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark and silent. Then, at 6:02 a.m., it buzzed. I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped it. Her name lit up the screen. Finally. But as I read the message, the relief I'd expected never came. Instead, my blood turned cold. I stayed at a hotel. We need to talk. 7 words. That's all it took to confirm what I'd been afraid to admit to myself all night. People don't stay at hotels in their own city unless they're hiding something. People don't send cryptic messages about needing to talk, unless the talk is one you don't want to have. I sat there, staring at those 7 words, reading them over and over as if they might somehow rearrange themselves into something less ominous. But they didn't. They just sat there, cold and final, as the morning sun began to rise. My hands were shaking as I typed back, "What hotel? Are you okay?" 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. This went on for a full minute, her starting to type, stopping, starting again. Finally, "I'm fine. The Meridian downtown. I'll be home around noon. We'll talk then." The Meridian. That was a luxury hotel, the kind with a rooftop bar and rooms that cost $400 a night minimum. The kind of place you didn't just crash at because you were tired. I knew this because I'd looked into booking a room there for our anniversary last year before deciding it was too expensive. Something wasn't right. Actually, everything wasn't right. I pulled up our bank account on my phone. We had separate accounts for personal spending but a shared one for household expenses and emergencies. The credit card linked to it was one we both used. My finger hovered over the transaction history, and part of me wanted to stop, to not look, to preserve whatever ignorance I still had. I looked anyway. There it was. Posted at 11:43 p.m. last night, the Meridian Grand Hotel, $485. But that wasn't all. At 10:17 p.m., Sapphire Spa and Wellness, $340. And earlier, at 7:30 p.m., Russo's Fine Dining, $218. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This wasn't some impromptu decision to grab a room because she was too tired to drive home. This was planned. The spa package, the expensive dinner, the luxury suite, this was a date night. Just not with me. I stood up, my coffee-deprived brain trying to process what I was seeing. Over $1,000 in one evening. While I'd been sitting at home, worried sick, calling hospitals, she'd been having a spa day and eating at one of the most romantic restaurants in the city. My phone buzzed again. But this time it wasn't from my wife. It was a notification from Instagram. Someone had tagged her in a photo. Normally I didn't pay much attention to her social media, but given the circumstances, I opened it. The photo was posted by Jennifer Kim, one of her co-workers I'd met a few times at company events. The caption read, "Team dinner turned into quite the night. Wineglass sparkles," posted at 8:47 p.m. I zoomed in on the photo. There were about 8 people seated at a long table at Russo's. I recognized the restaurant's signature marble walls and gold lighting. And there, on the left side of the table, was my wife. She was wearing a dark red dress I'd never seen before, her hair done in loose waves, laughing at something. And next to her, close enough that their shoulders were touching, was him. I knew who he was. Damian Richards. The creative director who'd joined her company about 8 months ago. She'd mentioned him in passing. Damian has some interesting ideas about the rebrand, or Damian suggested this new approach to the campaign. Always Damian this, Damian that. I'd made a mental note of it but never said anything. I didn't want to be that husband, the jealous, controlling type. But looking at this photo, seeing how comfortable they looked together, how she was angled toward him, how his hand rested on the back of her chair, all of it crashed over me like a wave. I zoomed in further. There were wine glasses, multiple bottles on the table. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. She looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy. When was the last time she'd looked at me like that? I scrolled through the other tags. A few more photos from the dinner, the group getting progressively more animated, more drinks appearing. But in every single photo that included my wife, Damian was right there next to her. Then I found it. A photo posted by someone else at the dinner, time-stamped at 10:03 p.m. Most of the group was gone, just 4 people remained at the table. My wife and Damian were 2 of them, sitting close, very close, his arm now clearly around her shoulders. The caption, "The party people keeping it going. Party popper." I felt sick. Physically, viscerally sick. I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved over the toilet, my body trying to purge what my mind couldn't process. When I finally steadied myself, I washed my face with cold water and looked in the mirror. The man staring back looked hollowed out, older than his 34 years. I gripped the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. She had lied. Maybe not explicitly, but through omission, through misdirection. Late work event became a romantic dinner. With the team became with him. I'll be home soon became I stayed at a hotel. My phone sat on the bathroom counter, and I picked it up again, looking at that text one more time. I stayed at a hotel. We need to talk. Yeah, we definitely needed to talk. But not the conversation she was probably planning. Because I already knew. I'd seen the receipts, the photos, the evidence of a night that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with betrayal. I had 6 hours until she came home. 6 hours to decide what I was going to do. 6 hours before my marriage either survived or ended. I walked to the bedroom and pulled out the suitcase from the top of our closet. The suitcase landed on our bed with a heavy thud that seemed to echo in the silent apartment. I stood there, staring at it, my mind oscillating between certainty and doubt. Was I overreacting? Should I wait to hear her explanation? But even as those questions formed, I knew the answers. I'd spent 7 years learning to read my wife, understanding her patterns, her tells. The elaborate spa treatment, the luxury hotel, the intimate dinner photos, these weren't the actions of someone working late. These were the actions of someone who'd stopped caring about getting caught. Or maybe someone who wanted to get caught. I pulled open my dresser drawer and started removing clothes mechanically. Socks, underwear, t-shirts. Each item felt heavier than it should, weighted with the reality of what I was doing. I was packing to leave my marriage. The phrase kept repeating in my head like a mantra I couldn't silence. My phone buzzed. Another text from her. I know you're upset. I can explain everything. Please just wait for me. I almost laughed. Upset was what you felt when someone forgot your birthday or ate the last slice of pizza. This went so far beyond upset that the word felt meaningless. I didn't respond. Instead, I went back to the bank account and took screenshots of all the charges. Then I went through Instagram and saved every photo from last night. Evidence. I was building a case against my own wife. The rational part of my brain tried to intervene. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the hotel room was because she felt unsafe driving home after drinking. Maybe Damien was just a friendly colleague and the photos were misleading angles. Maybe the spa package was a work incentive or a gift certificate she'd forgotten to mention. But too many maybes don't make a truth. They just make excuses. I thought about the past few months, recontextualizing everything through this new lens. The Tuesday night emergency meetings that seemed to happen every week. The new perfume she'd started wearing, something expensive and sophisticated that she claimed was a recommendation from a friend. The way she'd started going to the gym at 6 a.m. before work, coming home looking refreshed and energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. She was glowing lately. I'd noticed it but attributed it to her career success, her promotion. Now I understood it differently. She'd been happy because she was living a double life, and the excitement of it had given her that radiance I'd missed. God, I'd been so blind. Or maybe I'd chosen blindness because seeing would have hurt too much. I moved to the closet and started pulling down my suits, my dress shirts still in dry cleaning bags. I had work on Monday, assuming I could function well enough to actually go. Where would I even stay? We'd moved to this city together, built our lives here together. Our friends were couple friends. Our apartment was in both our names. The thought of untangling 7 years of intertwined existence felt overwhelming. My phone rang. This time it was actually her calling, not texting. I stared at her name on the screen, at the photo that popped up, a picture from our honeymoon in Greece, both of us sunburned and happy, the Aegean Sea blue behind us. That felt like a lifetime ago. Different people in a different reality. I declined the call. She called again immediately. Declined again. Then a text. Please pick up. You're scaring me. I was scaring her. The irony was almost funny. I typed back, Russo's. The Meridian. Sapphire Spa. $1,043 total. Quite the work event. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. This time they stayed for almost 3 minutes. I could imagine her on the other end, in that hotel room, trying to figure out how to spin this, what story would make it okay. Finally, it's not what you think. I swear. Just let me explain in person. Did you sleep with him? I sent it before I could second-guess myself. Direct. Blunt. The question that had been burning in my chest since I saw that first photo. No 3 dots this time. Just silence. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. The lack of an immediate no told me everything I needed to know. I sat down on the bed next to my half-packed suitcase and put my head in my hands. Despite everything, the evidence, the photos, the $1,000 romantic evening, part of me had still hoped. Still wanted her to have some miraculous explanation that would make this all okay. But she couldn't even give me a simple no. My phone rang again. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maybe I needed to hear her voice. Maybe I needed the confirmation. Don't say anything, she said immediately, her voice thick with tears. Just listen. Please. I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life. But it's not what you think. Did you sleep with him? I repeated, my voice surprisingly steady. Yes or no? Silence. Then, we got carried away. The wine, the evening, everything it just happened. But it was a mistake. A horrible, stupid mistake. I love you. I love our life. This doesn't mean anything. I hung up. My hands were steady as I placed the phone face down on the bed. I felt oddly calm, like I was watching myself from outside my body. The confirmation should have destroyed me, should have sent me into a rage or a breakdown. Instead, I just felt empty, hollowed out. 7 years. We'd been together for 7 years. And she'd thrown it away for a spa day and a hotel room with Damien Richards from the creative department. I stood up and continued packing. The apartment had never felt so quiet. Every small sound seemed amplified, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic outside, the ticking of the clock in the hallway. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, methodically separating my life from hers. Books from the shelf, mine on the left, hers on the right. That anniversary edition of Hemingway she'd given me, did I even want it now? I left it. The concert tickets pinned to our bulletin board for a show next month, pointless now. I unpinned them and let them fall into the trash. It was 9:30 a.m. 2.5 hours until she came home. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text after text, each one more desperate than the last. I'm so sorry. Please don't do this. 7 years has to mean something. It was one night. One stupid night. We can work through this. I'll do anything. Don't throw us away. I turned the phone face down, but I could still hear it vibrate against the wooden coffee table. Finally, I turned it off completely. The silence that followed was almost worse. I sat on the couch with a cup of coffee, my fourth of the morning, and let myself think about Damien Richards. I'd met him once, briefly, at her company holiday party last December. Tall, confident, the kind of guy who wore expensive watches and knew it. He'd shaken my hand with a firm grip and made small talk about the Celtics game, and I'd thought nothing of it. Just another colleague in her large office. Had it started then? Or was it more recent? How long had I been the fool who didn't see what was happening? I pulled out my laptop and did something I wasn't proud of. I looked him up on social media. His LinkedIn showed the standard corporate headshot and impressive resume. His Instagram was private, but his Facebook was open. Photos of hiking trips, craft cocktail bars, expensive-looking road bike. No relationship status listed. No photos of a girlfriend or wife. Available. Successful. Exactly the kind of guy who could turn a married woman's head if she was looking to have it turned. I slammed the laptop shut. This wasn't helpful. Obsessing over him wouldn't change anything. My phone, even turned off, seemed to pulse with presence. I turned it back on and found 12 more texts, 3 missed calls, and 2 voicemails. I didn't read the texts or listen to the messages. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled to my older brother's name. He lived 2 states away, but we were close. He'd know what to do. Or at least, he'd listen. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Hey, little brother. What's going on? I opened my mouth to speak and found I couldn't. The words were there, but they wouldn't come out. After 7 hours of numbness, something cracked. She cheated on me, I finally managed. My wife. She spent last night with someone else. The story poured out. The waiting, the texts, the bank statements, the photos, the phone call where she'd admitted it. My brother listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Are you sure you want to leave today? He finally asked. Maybe you should hear her full explanation first. She admitted it, I said. What else is there to explain? I'm not defending her, he said carefully. What she did is inexcusable. But you've been together 7 years. Don't you think you owe it to yourself to at least have the conversation? Even if it ends the same way. I don't want to hear her excuses. Not for her. For you. So you don't spend the rest of your life wondering if you made the right choice. I hated that he had a point. The lawyer in him always had a point. Where are you going to go? He asked. I hadn't thought that far ahead. A hotel, I guess. Then maybe. I don't know. Come here, he said immediately. Pack your stuff, get in the car, and drive. You can stay as long as you need. Beth and I will take care of you. The kindness in his voice almost broke me again. I appreciate it. I need to see this through first. We talked for a few more minutes, and he made me promise to call him later. After we hung up, I looked at the time, 11:15 a.m. 45 minutes. I walked through the apartment one more time, seeing it with new eyes. The framed photos on the walls, our wedding, various vacations, dinners with friends. The throw pillows on the couch that she'd insisted we needed. The painting above the fireplace that we'd bought together at a street fair. 7 years of accumulated memories, all of it now tainted. I stopped in the kitchen and pulled out a piece of paper and a pen. I needed to write something, to leave some final message. But what do you say? How do you summarize the end of a marriage in a few words? I stood there, pen hovering over paper, for a long time. Finally, I wrote. I already know the truth. The key is on the table. Short. Final. No room for negotiation or explanation. I placed the note on the kitchen counter, put my apartment key next to it, and picked up my suitcase. At 11:47 a.m., my phone buzzed one more time. I'm pulling into the garage. Please be there. Please. I took one last look around the apartment, our apartment, and walked out the door. I stood in the hallway outside our apartment, my suitcase beside me, listening. The elevator dinged down the corridor, and I heard the doors open. Footsteps. Quick. Hurried. Then they stopped. She'd seen my car in the garage. She knew I was still here. I should have left. Should have been halfway down the fire escape by now. But something kept me rooted to that spot, listening as her key turned in the lock, as the door opened, as she called out my name. Hello? Please, can we just talk? Her voice cut off abruptly. She'd seen the note. I heard the paper crinkle as she picked it up, and then a sound I'd never heard from her before, a kind of broken gasp that turned into a sob. No, she said. No, no, no. Please. I closed my eyes. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to get in the elevator and leave this behind. But my brother's words echoed in my mind. Don't you owe it to yourself to at least have the conversation? Before I could second-guess myself, I opened the door. She spun around, still in the red dress from last night, her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. She looked nothing like the radiant woman in those Instagram photos. She looked wrecked. You're here, she breathed, and started toward me. I held up a hand, stopping her. Don't. She froze, the note still clutched in her hand. Please. Just let me explain. Explain what? My voice came out colder than I expected. You already admitted it on the phone. You slept with him. It was a mistake. Stop. I stepped into the apartment but kept my distance. I don't want to hear about the mistake. I want to understand how we got here. How my wife of 7 years decided to have an affair. She flinched at the word affair. It wasn't an affair. It was one night. One horrible decision. One night that you planned. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. The spa package. The hotel room. The dinner. This wasn't spontaneous. You planned this. Her face crumpled. The spa was a work thing, a team-building exercise. The dinner was supposed to be with everyone. And the hotel was $485 for a luxury suite, I finished. Not exactly a practical choice if you were just too tired to drive home. She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. Everything spiraled. The dinner went late, People started leaving, and then it was just a few of us. We had too much wine. Damien suggested going to the hotel bar, and I know I should have said no. I know I should have come home, but I didn't want the night to end. Why? The question came out raw. Why didn't you want to come home to me? She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Because when I'm with you, I feel like I'm failing. Like I'm not the person you married anymore. I'm working 80-hour weeks, I'm stressed constantly, and when I come home, you look at me like you're disappointed that this is what I've become. The accusation hit me like a slap. That's not fair. I've supported every decision you've made. Your promotion, your long hours. You've tolerated them, she interrupted. There's a difference. Every time I work late, you get this look. Every time I miss dinner or cancel plans, you say you understand, but I can feel your resentment. So you found someone who appreciates your success. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Is that what Damien is? Someone who makes you feel good about yourself. He listens to me, she said quietly. When I talk about work, about my ideas, about my ambitions, he gets excited. He engages. He doesn't look at me like I'm choosing my career over my marriage. Because he has no stake in the marriage. I was shouting now, all the calm evaporating. It's easy to be supportive when you're not the one waiting at home, wondering if your wife is alive or dead. It's easy to be excited about her career when you get to be the fun distraction instead of the real life. She was full on crying now, her shoulders shaking. I know you're right. And I hate myself for what I did. But I've been so lost lately. So disconnected from everything. And last night, for just a few hours, I felt like myself again. So this is my fault? I asked. I made you feel so disconnected that you had to sleep with someone else. No. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. It's not your fault. It's mine. I made the choice. I'm the one who destroyed everything. But I'm trying to tell you why, trying to make you understand. I don't want to understand. I grabbed my suitcase. I don't want to hear about how hard your life is or how disconnected you feel. You know what you do when you feel disconnected from your marriage? You talk to your husband. You suggest counseling. You work on it together. You don't go fuck someone from work. The profanity hung in the air between us. I never cursed at her. In 7 years, I'd never raised my voice like this. I'll quit, she said desperately. I'll leave the company. I'll never see him again. We can move, start over somewhere new. And in 6 months or a year or 5 years, when you're feeling disconnected again, when some other guy listens to you the right way. I shook my head. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering when it's going to happen again. It won't. I swear it won't. I love you. I know I didn't show it, I know I took you for granted, but I love you more than anything. If that were true, you would have come home last night. I moved toward the door. You would have sent me a text saying you were okay. You would have done anything except what you did. Please. She stood up, reaching for me. Don't give up on us. Not like this. We can get through this. People do it all the time. Couples survive this. Some couples do, I agreed. But you know what those couples have that we don't? Trust. And you destroyed that. Every time you work late now, I'll wonder. Every time you're on your phone, I'll wonder. Every time you're 5 minutes late, I'll wonder. That's not a marriage. That's a prison. So that's it. Her voice broke. 7 years, and you're just walking away. You walked away last night, I said quietly. I'm just making it official. I opened the door, and she didn't try to stop me this time. But as I stepped into the hallway, I heard her voice one last time, small and broken. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't turn around. Me too. I drove for 3 hours before I had to pull over. It hit me all at once on a stretch of highway somewhere between our city and my brother's, the weight of what I'd done, what she'd done, what we'd both lost. I sat in a rest stop parking lot and let myself fall apart. 7 years. Gone. Just like that. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. You on the road? Yeah, I typed back. Be there in a few hours. We'll be waiting. Love you, brother. I sat there for a while longer, watching families come and go from the rest stop, couples holding hands, kids running around. All of them living their normal lives while mine had shattered. Eventually, I started the car again. I had a long drive ahead of me, and after that, a longer process of figuring out who I was without her. But as I merged back onto the highway, I felt something I hadn't expected: relief. The waiting was over. The wondering was over. The lies were over. It would hurt for a long time, I knew that. There would be nights when I'd question my decision, wonder if I'd given up too easily, if forgiveness might have been the braver choice. But every time those doubts crept in, I'd remember that text from 6:02 a.m. I stayed at a hotel. We need to talk. 7 words that told me everything I needed to know. She'd made her choice in that hotel room. And I'd made mine in that hallway. Sometimes the end of something is the only honest thing left. I drove toward my brother's house, toward whatever came next, and I didn't look back.